All right, traders, good afternoon. This is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group, and it is May 11th, Monday. And pretty interesting market, I would say, that we had once again today. I have a little bit of an Excel problem here, so I just took a quick screenshot of my spreadsheet before Excel went down. It takes forever for it to come back up, but that's what it is right now. I'm still working from home and not in my New York City office, so just kind of balancing that out a little bit. But I started to write the theme of the day. I mean, it's basically been kind of the same thing. I think a lot of people are talking about how the breadth definitely, not that great. And if you look across sectors and the major indices, it's kind of the same story of what we've been saying for the last couple of weeks. Nasdaq's outperforming. The Qs were up. The Qs were up almost 1% for the day. Meanwhile, the S&P was basically flat for the day. Small caps underperformed today, down 0.5%. And if you look at the worst performing groups first, and then we'll go into we'll talk about really the star performers. But gold miners, which is fine. I don't really care too much about that. They had they were up last week about 5%, I think. So GDX down 2.78%. Where it gets interesting is the banks again. The banks were down over 4% for the day. That's the regional banks. And also steel companies are down 4%. So I know I keep saying it's the haves versus the have-nots market, but it's really interesting to see this separation. And if you're really good at this, you could be shorting some of these groups and going long the other ones because there's really some major outperformance that's taking place between something like the banks and biotech as well as software and tech. Another thing to note here, we'll talk a little bit about this maybe at the end of the video, but look at as well bonds. I don't think it's getting as much coverage right now, but the bonds are actually selling off. This is something that we started to talk about last week. And it's also bringing down, right, because there's a lot of implications when rates move. People kind of jump out of some of the hiding places that they're in. So you can see utilities are on the list of underperformers as well. They were down, not nearly as bad as those banks, but they were down about 0.5% for the day. Okay, so let's talk about what is the star performer right now, and that's biotech. If you're not familiar with this ETF, XBI, this is the equally weighted biotech ETF. So that means the small companies get the same representation as the large companies. They all get the same, right? Equally weighted ETF. And look at this thing blast off. This thing was up 4.7% today. So I like to give the media a hard time because when they make mistakes all the time, but I keep hearing the same things, and it's not every person in financial media, but I keep hearing, like today, what they were harping on was, it's the large caps. It's the large caps they're leading. It's the FANG stocks. Guys, it's not really the FANG stocks are participating, and they're outperforming, but you're missing the whole boat. It's really the biotechs that are doing very well, and software, a lot of small cap software. Right? Again, this is nothing new. We've been talking about this now for weeks, but here were your best performers in this group, and you could see a lot of names above 10% for the day. Again, and if you look at these, right, these are not large cap names. I mentioned that you have both in here, large cap and small cap, but you probably recognize a handful of names in here if you're not a biotech expert. Names that have been getting a lot of press lately are mRNA. There's a few other ones in here as well. And if we look at the overall, if we kind of scroll down a little bit, you'll see some bigger names in here too. Like VRTX is out to, this is one of my favorite names within the group. Vertex was up another 5%. That's 13%. I mean, that kind of looks like the breakout there. And the other thing that I noticed when we were going through the weekend video is it's not just the biotech that's strong in healthcare. It's like 3 or 4 different groups, right? This DXCM, like the whole group is super strong, right? So this is DXCM, which has been super strong and has been seeing activity the last couple of weeks. Tandem had a nice day today too. That was a name that I traded last week. I did get out of it. I kind of looked at it today because look at the candle that this thing put in. I think this thing goes higher too. And there's a little bit of calls in this one too. But these are no for an ETF to play this group. Again, there's a lot of companies in here, but this is the healthcare equipment ETF. So that covers a lot of these names. May not be as strong as the whole lot. Of course, medical devices has been super strong as well. I mean, again, looking at these, right, and if I go from XBI to this, it's like, well, it's not that strong. But if you look at the overall S&P, you could see the difference here. So that's the strongest group that's out there. Of course, the software remains super strong. Look at and it's also it's a momentum market, momentum growth. So the question becomes, and you can see Shopify was up another 5.8% after reporting earnings, getting a whole bunch of nice publicity. I saw Twilio was up again. AMD, which so this is right now, like, groups that I like right now. And again, this is basically what happens. As I had talked about, I said, watch AMD. It's usually a few days after earnings. Right? Here was the last time it reported earnings. It was kind of like, a dud of a reaction. It went to sleep for a couple of days and then boom, goes out to a 52-week high. So look at the candle today. So again, what usually happens when you see one of these big green candles is they just start buying weekly calls like hand over fist. And you can see up 5% today. And again, this is a name that we've talked about now. The earnings were fine that they had in this group. So this is one of my favorite groups right now from a if you don't want individual risk, I'm talking a lot about ETFs in this particular one, but I think this SMH, I went into this today. I think that this can, if it manages to stay above value, which is basically call it 134.50. I like the whole group, and I like the group to basically try to go up to 146. That 146 level can also be seen as resistance on the 1 hour chart as well. Looks like that value here right at the end of the day. Basically finished flat. So this was not one of the best performers of the day. So again, I'm kind of looking for something maybe see a rotation into versus continuing to play the same names all the time, which I think people are doing, and they're having a great old time. Continuing to play Shopify too. So that's not a bad strategy in this market right now. But if you look at as well, I think NVIDIA made a new high. So again, we're seeing a lot of strength. I would also call them, rather than momentum and growth, I would also call them quality names too. Right? If you look at, I think broke out to all-time highs today, to just barely for this one. But you're just seeing that kind of all over the place in really high quality names, right? Chipotle is not, it's not a FANG stock, right? Speaking of the FANG stocks, they're doing quite well. Amazon was up 1.4%. I do think that this, I'm not going to make a prediction here, and I am long Amazon in the Tribeca Trade Group tactical portfolio, but it's basically spent the whole month inside value. I think I wouldn't be surprised if this continues to kind of chop around, maybe explores the higher top of value 2470, but I see this so far, and we're not even halfway through the month yet, but I do see maybe this might set up better for the month of June, but we'll see. It's putting a nice bull flag, and then of course, right, I agree that the FANG stocks aren't strong, even though Apple's not technically a FANG. You have to throw in another A. But I think this Amazon Apple is getting up to 322. That's your resistance there. And I think Google also has an upside area of 1509. Now, who knows? These may not get there, and I would think that they wouldn't get there in a straight line. But you never know with this market right now. So overall. The momentum right now, I don't think anybody knows how long this is going to last, where the breadth is just, crazy in terms of what names are breaking down. I mean, look at Wells Fargo. Now, again, I had a lot of people ask me questions about Wells Fargo. They saw some type of action. They saw a whole bunch of calls, but really the calls were a spread. So I try to tell people that on Twitter. They're like, well, what about all those Wells Fargo calls? Well, it was a spread. And also, this chart should be telling you this, right? So I don't want to play in this area. I want to continue to play with names that have momentum until they stop. And as always, what I've been kind of saying is be careful. Basically, that eventually they will get hit, on valuation issues. But I don't know when that's going to happen. So if you can kind of continue with this trend and take profits as you go along, continuing to ride winners, that's the name of the game right now. Because again, there's I'm starting to in my head, right, to kind of doubt how many names we're seeing breakout. Look at Coupa Software, by the way. This is another one, up to 8%, almost 8% for the day. So I'm trying to stay in some of these things in my tactical portfolio, right? I've got some software names in there, and I'm just kind of riding the trend with those names. In my trading account, if I'm not positioned in these, it is tough to continue to get winners. But like I've just been riding the trend, and in a lot of names like Shopify, which is out to a brand new 52-week high as well. So really, really impressive. I think I was going to cover one more name. Oh, I was just going to. Everybody seems to really like this name, and that's the other group. Is basically cyber. This thing's not doing all that much, but keep in mind it was up 7.6%. But if you look at the cyber names. So again, as you can see, like I like to go over a few different groups to kind of show you that this isn't just the FANG stocks. And I think the financial media is doing a really big disservice by just being very lazy and, sorry, no, I shouldn't say that, that's mean. But the fact that if they're not going over these groups like this, I just don't think that's CrowdStrike is another one that is continuing to grind higher. So cyber, biotech, software, application, infrastructure, enterprise software. So again, eventually these things are going to need a pullback. I don't know when that's going to be. So for now, just kind of stick with the trend, continue to ratchet up your trailing stops, and go from there. Guys, have a great night, and I'll see you tomorrow.